She is standing in the wrong house, before the wrong man, and she has never looked more certain she belongs exactly where she is. The candles in the receiving hall of Ashvale Park have been burning since 3 in the afternoon, lit early against the October grey, and by now the wax has run in small pale rivers down the silver holders, thin translucent tracks that nobody has bothered to notice, because the room has other things to occupy its attention. There are a dozen members of the household staff arranged along the far wall in a line of careful formality. There are 2 solicitors stationed before the fireplace, so still they might have been placed there like ornaments. And there is the Duke of Ashvale himself, Everett Aldrich Pembourne, 34 years old, one of the largest landowners in Derbyshire, a man who has not been surprised by anything in a very long time, standing at the centre of his own receiving hall, with an open letter in his hand and an expression that is not quite fury because fury involves heat, and this is cold all the way down. Before him stands a woman. Her travelling dress is 3 seasons out of fashion, and one sleeve is damp from the rain. Her dark hair has escaped its pins on the left side in a way that no amount of the journey explains. There is a smudge of ink on her right wrist, and her chin is perfectly, deliberately level with the horizon, as though she has made a specific decision about her chin and intends to honour it. She is not who was arranged. He knows it. She knows he knows it. The solicitors know everything and are saying nothing. She is terrified, this woman. Her heart has been hammering since the carriage turned up the Ashvale drive, and she saw the scale of the house through the rain-blurred window and thought, very clearly. Oh, but she made a decision somewhere between the coaching inn at Sheffield and these front steps. A decision about her face, about what would and would not be permitted to reach it today. And fear did not make the list. Her name is Beatrice Ashwood. She is 26 years old, and she is standing exactly where she chose to stand. Before I tell you how she came to be there, before I tell you what she did, what he said, and what happened between these 2 people that neither of them expected, I want to ask you something. If you have ever walked into a room where you were not expected and refused to apologise for it, this story is for you. If you have not yet subscribed to Whispered Thrones, come in from the cold and join us. Every week we sit with women like Beatrice, women who arrived imperfect and unafraid, and we listen to what they did next. Now, let me take you back to where this began. The story of Beatrice Ashwood begins, as most difficult stories do, not with a single catastrophe, but with a long, slow series of doors closing. Her father was a country solicitor in Shropshire, respectable in the modest specific way that means trusted in the town and invited to the second tier of gatherings rather than the first. He was a gentle man and a curious one, and the thing he gave his daughter that no amount of money could have purchased was access. Access to his full library, which lined 3 walls of his study and smelled of must and leather, and the warmth of a room where someone had spent real hours. Access to his arguments. He argued with Beatrice genuinely, because her mind pushed back with a force that made him sharper, and he was honest enough to value that above the satisfaction of being agreed with. Her mother died when she was 14. Her father died 18 months before this story begins, leaving behind a house mortgaged past its value, and a letter of apology that was sincere and insufficient in equal measure. Beatrice was left with £12, 2 shillings, and the problem of the future. She had been offered 3 positions as governess in the year after his death. She turned down 2. The households treated their governesses as furniture, useful, undemanding, present without being present. And she had not come this far to become a table. She accepted the 3rd, in Somerset, and lasted 4 months before being dismissed for correcting the gentleman of the house on his interpretation of the Corn Laws at dinner in front of guests because she simply could not sit and listen to someone explain something wrongly, while everyone around the table pretended that wrong and right had agreed not to matter. By the time her aunt, Mrs. Dorothea Fenn of Bath, extended the invitation that was also a warning. "You may stay until the end of the year, niece, but do try to be less of yourself." Beatrice was 26, nearly out of money, and one aunt's patience from being genuinely homeless. Every morning, wherever she was, she wrote half a page in a small brown notebook. Not a diary, not feelings, arguments, a proposition she had been turning over, a counter-argument she had not yet resolved. When circumstances were truly dire and she could not write, she composed in her head, and the words sat behind her eyes all day, patient, waiting. She was afraid of one specific thing, disappearing. She had watched it happen to other women, clever women who slowly dim, who learn to hold their thoughts the way you hold a coin no one wants, who one day look in the mirror and cannot quite remember what they used to think about. She was afraid of shrinking all the way to nothing, not dramatically, but in the slow and ordinary way, which is so much worse. Across the county and across the world she moved in, there was another kind of person entirely. Everett Aldrich Pembourne, Duke of Ashvale, rose at 6 in the morning and began dictating. This is how you should understand him. Not at a dinner table, not at a ball, but at his writing desk in the grey early light of a Derbyshire October, speaking aloud to his secretary a letter that specified, with the precision of a man ordering a new wing for a building, the requirements for his future wife. Age between 20 and 28, family, respectable, no scandal, temperament, composed, amenable. He paused at the final item, quiet in company. He read it back, decided it was an appropriate requirement, and moved on. He had been married once, Eleanor, 2 years, and then a fever in the summer of 1811 that was not supposed to be dangerous, and was. He does not speak of it. He has organized his grief the way he organizes everything, with precision and structure, and the discipline of a man who has decided that being undone once is the limit. Love, in his experience, is the name people give to the thing that undoes you. He has decided consciously that he is done being undone. What he has not decided, because it does not yet know it needs deciding, is the loneliness. Not the self-pitying kind. He would not tolerate self-pity even privately, but the specific loneliness of a man who has not had a conversation that surprised him in 3 years. He reads voraciously and has no one to argue with. He has opinions, real ones, tested against books, that he keeps to himself, because there is no one in his immediate circle who would push back. A man who is never disagreed with eventually stops being certain of anything. He has been losing the edges of himself, and he does not know it yet. This was the man at 6 in the morning, building what he believed was a sensible plan. What was actually a very elegant cage. The plan had proceeded smoothly. His solicitors had recommended Miss Cecily Wyndham of York. Good family, appropriate age, quiet temperament by report. He had met her, found her acceptable, and moved forward with characteristic efficiency. The future, as he understood it, was on schedule. And then, on a wet October afternoon, a carriage came up the Ashvale drive, and what stepped out of it was not what had been arranged. The Duke did not bluster. This was the first thing Beatrice noticed about him, and it was the thing that complicated everything. He dismissed the solicitors, he dismissed the staff. He had Beatrice brought to his study, mahogany desk with nothing on it that did not need to be there, a fire burning past its peak but still substantial, books on every surface that was not technically structural wall, arranged by use. She noticed immediately the most recently reached for slightly forward of the others, their spines a shade less dusty. She looked at them before she looked at him. She always looked at the books first, in any room she entered. He remained standing after she sat. She understood this, a choice about power, and accepted it, because she was also busy noting that he was not what she had expected. She had expected bluster. Instead, he was very quiet. The kind of quiet that is not the absence of something but the presence of great sustained control. His hands were flat on the desk's edge, perfectly still. She noticed he was tired, in a way that went further than last night's sleep. She noticed, against all fairness, that he was someone she would want to talk to if the circumstances were different. That observation was inconvenient. She put it somewhere she could not see it. He asked her to explain herself. Not demanded, asked, with the tone of a man who wants the true answer, not the performed one, and will know the difference. She gave it to him. Not all of it. Not the part that was specifically hers, not yet, but enough. The companion agency. The woman who was supposed to be here, taken ill. The correspondence she had been given to assist the arrangement. She spoke without apology for the situation itself, because she had been well raised, which is different from being sorry for existing. He's asked a follow-up question. She answered it. He asked another. 37 minutes passed. She knew because there was a clock on the mantelpiece, and she had checked it twice, startled both times by how much time had gone by. The conversation had stopped being interrogation somewhere in the middle, and had become something else. Something with the shape and heat of a real argument, both of them in it, neither waiting for the other to yield. He was wrong about the Enclosure Acts. Not globally, he had a point about efficiency, but wrong about the long-term social consequence of displacement. And she told him so, and he came back with a statistic, and she countered with a methodological objection from her father's journal, and he paused, looked at her, not with displeasure, with something she did not yet have a name for. He told her she would remain in the guest wing overnight, and the matter would be resolved in the morning. At the door she turned. "Your library is better than I expected, Your Grace," she said. "You have the new Malthus. I disagree with most of it, if you are wondering." She left. She did not look back. Behind her, alone in his study, Everett Pembourne sat down and did something he had not done in a very long time. He laughed. Once, quietly, alone, at nothing in particular, at everything in general. At 37 minutes of someone telling him he was wrong about enclosure. He did not resolve the matter in the morning. On the second day, a letter came from London. The Wyndham family's solicitor, writing in the smooth prose of a man delivering bad news in the most comfortable possible vehicle. Miss Cecily Wyndham had withdrawn. She had given her word to another man before the Pembourne arrangement was formally concluded. The family wished to convey sincere regrets and complete confidence that the matter, handled with discretion, need not become a matter of wider discussion. He read it twice. He was silent for a long time. Then he went to the library. She was there, in the chair, with the best Eastern light that had become hers without anyone formally deciding. He told her about the letter. All of it. He did not have to. He could have managed this entirely above her. He told her anyway, because something about her required him to treat her as someone who should know what affected her. She was quiet for a moment. "I see," she said. "Then, I imagine that changes things, for both of us." He understood she was not asking for anything. She was simply being accurate. The decision before her was this: accept the offer she knew was coming, or walk away and take the scandal of her presence alone. Never become the wife of a man whose first choice had withdrawn, and who had found a replacement standing in his front hall. One was practical, one was proud. She was not sure she was permitted to be both. On the third morning she had not resolved it, so she resolved it herself. She found him at his desk before anyone else was up, knocked and entered. "I need to tell you something before you make any decision," she said. I will not let you make an offer to someone you believe arrived here by accident. He put down his pen. He waited. She told him everything, the companion agency engaged by her aunt, the letters he had written to his solicitors, which she had read in the small hours of a Sheffield coaching inn, turning them over, finding in them, beneath all the precision, someone trying very hard not to need anything. The decision she made between that coaching inn and the Ashvale front steps, not to deceive him permanently, but to walk through the door and see what happened, because she was 26 and nearly out of options, and she had read someone who was quietly building a prison for himself and calling it a plan, and she thought that was a waste. She had chosen to be there. She had always been choosing to be there. When she finished, the study was very quiet. The fire popped once. "You read my letters," he said, "and your conclusion was that I required intervention." "My conclusion," she said carefully, "was that you were interesting, and that I had nothing left to lose. You are describing an act that could see you in front of a magistrate." "I know," she said. "I knew then. I walked through the door anyway." She picked up her notebook and went back to the library, and for the first time since she had arrived, she felt the strange clarifying calm of someone who has said the true thing aloud, and is done waiting for it to be discovered. Whatever happened next, she was in it with both eyes open. What happened next had 3 parts, and none of them were simple. First, a letter from Bath. Mrs. Fenn had been making inquiries. The letter was 3 paragraphs and cold enough to make the library feel colder. She was withdrawing her invitation. She would not be associated with scandal. She trusted Beatrice to make whatever arrangements were necessary on her own behalf. Beatrice read it twice, folded it into her notebook with the same composure with which she did everything, and opened the notebook and wrote nothing. Only the notebook knew what that cost her. Second, Lord Gervase Mallow, a neighbouring landowner who had been trying to acquire an Ashvale parcel for 2 years and had been refused each time. Someone in the household had talked. The garbled version of a story always finds the person who will use it worst, and Mallow sent a letter to 3 county acquaintances, phrased as concern. It was not concern, ripples began. Third and worst. The Duke came to the library in the late afternoon and told her his solicitors had advised him to issue a statement, a clear, formal denial. She had arrived under false pretenses. He had no knowledge of any arrangement of that kind. Any irregularity was her doing entirely. It would protect him completely. It would finish her. He told her not to threaten her. She understood that, and the understanding was complicated, because it meant the same instinct that had sent him to the library with the Wyndham letter. The instinct to treat her as someone who should know what was happening was operating now. She could see the war in his face. He was considering it. She had begun to think she had been wrong about him, that he was not like the others. "I understand, Your Grace," she said in the voice she used when the thing happening was too large to react to immediately. "I knew the risk when I walked through your door. Do what you must." She left the room with everything intact, sat for 40 minutes in the cold library, and wrote nothing. That night, alone in the guest room, she thought about whether a woman like her, without money, without family, without the right kind of quietness, got to come through something like this with any part of herself still recognizably hers. She picked up the notebook. She wrote, "A woman who has never apologized for her mind should not begin now." She stared at it. She could not find a counter-argument. She closed the notebook and went to sleep. Sometimes the bravest sentence a woman ever writes is the one in the private book that no one else will see. She had argued herself back to herself. That is not a small thing. She did not find out what he had decided from him. She found out from Mrs. Calloway. The housekeeper of Ashvale Park had managed this house through a death, through difficult harvests, and through the kind of administrative complexity that only a ducal estate can generate. She was also, underneath the composure, someone who believed the people living in a house deserved to understand their situation. Because not understanding your situation is one of the fastest ways to make a bad decision. She found Beatrice in the linen corridor. Beatrice had come to return a borrowed shawl. Mrs. Calloway was counting sheets. "I thought you might want to know," said Mrs. Calloway, not looking up, that His Grace sent letters last week. To Lord Mallow. To the 3 county families Lord Mallow had written to, and to his solicitors. "What did the letters say?" Mrs. Calloway looked up then. "He wrote that he had invited you to remain at Ashvale while legal matters were concluded, that any irregularity in your presence was the result of his own decisions as head of this household, and that any suggestion you had acted with improper intent was false, and he would respond to any further suggestion of that kind in whatever venue the suggester preferred, up to and including a court of law." The corridor was very quiet. "He was never going to issue the other statement," Beatrice said. Not quite a question, more like a woman arriving at something that had already been true. "No," said Mrs. Calloway, and returned to her sheets. There was something that wanted to be relief, but felt more like the ground solidifying under her feet. There was something that almost wanted to be anger. He had let her stand in the study and say, "Do what you must," without telling her he had already decided otherwise. But even the anger could not fully form, because she understood why. He had given her the truth of the advice. The decision was his own. He had not made it her problem to carry. He had simply made it, and there was something else. Smaller, quieter, more dangerous. A feeling without a name yet about the specific kind of man who writes letters to county gossips at midnight so that a woman he barely knows can hold her head up in the morning and says nothing about it, and goes to oversee the east drainage because that is what there is to do next. She did not have a category for this. She needed one. She went back to the library. December had arrived while none of them were paying attention to the calendar. The library in December was a room that deserved to exist in December. Fire burning low, rain against the glass, one lamp on the table between 2 chairs that had been angled over the preceding weeks into a position that was nobody's official decision. He was in his chair with a book. She was in hers with a book she had not opened in 20 minutes. She closed it. She did not look at him when she began. Then she did. "I want to say something, and I need you to not respond until I am finished, because if you respond I will lose my nerve and spend the rest of my life wishing I had said it." A pause. He closed his own book. He did not speak. "You protected me. You did not have to. I had not earned it. You did not do it to purchase something from me, or I would know by now what the price was. Men who act in order to own something always let you know eventually, in the way they wait to be thanked. You have not done that. You did it because something in you would not do otherwise." She kept looking at him. "I spent 4 days trying to find a way to be angry about it, trying to find the part that is a transaction, or a kindness that turns quietly into a debt. I cannot find it. I have looked carefully and I cannot find it because it was simply good. You were simply good, and I did not know what to do with that, because I have not had much experience of simple goodness from men who had the power to be otherwise." Outside, the rain intensified for a moment and then softened. "I walked into your house because I read your letters and thought I understood you. I understood the surface, the requirements, the categories, the careful logic of everything. I did not understand what was beneath it. I did not understand that beneath the precision there is a man who writes letters to county gossips at midnight, so that a woman he barely knows can hold her head up in the morning. I did not understand that man." She stopped. "I would like to." She looked at her own hands. They were not entirely steady. She had not noticed that until now. "I am staying. not only because I have nowhere to go, though that is also true, and I will not pretend otherwise, because you deserve my honesty, even when it is unflattering. I am staying because I choose to, because when I write a proposition in my notebook and cannot find the counter-argument, I have to act on it, and I cannot find a counter-argument to staying. She looked at him directly, with the chin level, with the same decision she had made on the Ashvale front steps. If you find that inconvenient, I trust you will tell me clearly. That appears to be something we are both capable of. She picked up her book. She opened it. Her face was her own. For a long moment he said nothing. She could hear the fire and the rain and nothing else. Then he got up from his chair, crossed to the bookshelf, ran a finger along the spines, pulled one out, and held it across the space between them. His personal copy of Malthus. She could see the annotations even from here. The underlinings, the dense, small handwriting in the margins, pages and pages of private argument with the printed text. Page 47, he said, quietly. The voice of a man who is saying the careful thing instead of the large thing. Because the large thing is not yet ready, but this much is possible. Tell me where I am wrong. It was not a proposal, it was something rarer, an invitation from one serious mind to another to begin. 2 days later, at dawn, Everett Pembourne went to the estate chapel alone and sat in it for a long time. Mrs. Calloway understood without being told. A man who goes to a chapel at dawn is accounting for something. A man who accounts for things has decided to change. He came back and wrote a letter. Not to his solicitors, not to a county neighbour, but to Beatrice. Formally, in writing, though they were in the same house, because some things required the permanence of ink. It said, I built a list of requirements for a wife because I did not know how else to begin. I believed that precision was the same thing as safety, and safety the same thing as not being ruined again. I was wrong on both counts, and I believe you would have told me so from the start if I had asked you, which is something I can say about almost no one else I have ever met. I am asking now, Miss Ashwood. I am asking now. He slipped it under the library door. Then he went to oversee the east pasture drainage, because he was a man who could not simply wait in a chair, and she would have to decide whether she could accept that. That same week, his solicitors received an instruction to establish, from the estate funds, a legal trust for the library at Ashvale, to be managed by the Duchess of Ashvale in perpetuity, with complete autonomous authority over its contents and catalogue. He left the solicitor's summary on her reading table without a word. He could not be graceful about sentiment, but he could make sentiment permanent on paper, and the library was hers now, whatever she decided. She found the letter in the morning. She sat in her chair unmistakably now, and read it twice. She thought about the kind of man who demonstrates change in ink, and then goes to supervise drainage, because the estate does not pause for sentiment. She thought about what it would mean to be the Duchess of Ashvale, which was not what she had come here planning to be, which was precisely why it might be something real. She opened her notebook. She wrote, "A life is too long to spend it being quiet." She had never been able to find a counter-argument to that one. She decided. This is what they were, in the end. Two people who had both, separately, concluded that what they actually wanted was too much to ask for, and then found each other across the width of a library and asked for it anyway. He had built a list because a list is safer than hope. She had walked through the wrong door because she had been running out of doors. Neither of them expected what was waiting on the other side of honesty. Lord Mallow applied again for the Ashvale parcel in the spring and received the same refusal, but this time the letter was signed in 2 hands. Mrs. Fenn wrote in January, careful and circuitous, neither apologising nor quite failing to, and Beatrice wrote back with warmth and without resentment. because she had won something larger than that argument, and she knew it. Miss Priscilla Rand, who had been ill in Sheffield through all of this, and had never understood what had happened in her absence, received a signed copy of a new agricultural pamphlet from the Ashvale estate, with a note from the Duchess. "I hope your health is recovered. I owe you something of a debt. Signed B." The county families who had received Mallow's letters eventually came to visit, because a duke who vouches for someone with that kind of deliberateness creates curiosity, and what they found was a duchess who met them without apology. Some found this alarming, some found it magnificent. All of them left having understood something they had not understood before they arrived. He still rose at 6. He still reviewed the estate accounts with the attention of a man who does not trust what he cannot personally verify. But there were arguments at breakfast now. He was wrong, occasionally, and someone told him so in complete sentences without waiting for permission, which was the specific thing he had been losing and had not known he was losing. He was privately, not publicly, grateful every day, the library in early spring. Windows open for the first time since October, cold still but soft. A book open on her lap, her notebook beside it, half a page written. Everett at the desk in the corner, not reading, watching her read, the way a man watches something that surprised him and has not stopped surprising him, and that he no longer needs to arrange or protect himself against. "Page 63, he said. "You have not argued about page 63 yet." She looked up. She was already arguing. "Before I let you go tonight, I want to say this directly, the way I hope you have always felt I would. This was never really a story about a man who ordered the wrong wife. It was a story about two people who had decided, with very good reason, that the thing they most wanted was too much to ask for. And then a woman walked through a door she was not supposed to walk through, and a man failed to close it behind her, and something honest happened in the space between them, and neither of them was ever quite as alone again. The women who survive, in all the stories I have sat with, they are not the ones who perfect themselves into something acceptable. They are the ones who arrive, imperfect, present, unwilling to apologise for their own minds. If this story gave you something tonight, if some part of Beatrice felt familiar, if you recognised what it means to walk through a door and refuse to shrink on the other side of it, then come and sit with us every week at Whispered Thrones. Subscribe if you have not, and I promise we will always keep the fire going. And if you don't subscribe, well, I think we both know you owe me a favour, and I will collect it in the form of you being here next time. Good night. She was standing in the wrong house, before the wrong man, and she had never looked more certain she belonged exactly where she was. Perhaps she was never wrong at all.